Hey guys, Aviation here. As you can see, there are plenty of whoops right here on the table. I've been getting a question from a few of you guys saying, hey, review that whoop, or what is the best whoop to start off with, and what is your all-time favorite whoop? And here's the video that you all been looking for. I hope you guys can stay till the end because there's going to be a lot of amazing things in this video. Spoiler alert, this guy right here is unbelievable, but we're going to save it till the end. So if you guys want to watch through, there's going to be a lot of DVR clips, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's start off with whoop number 1. So I've been flying whoops for about a year now because that's how long I've been in the hobby. And when I started off, I had a Moblite 7. And the Moblite 7 out of the box was phenomenal. And this thing flew on 2S, and for those of you who've owned a Moblite 7 before, you guys know that this thing is unbelievably powerful. It was so hard to manage indoors, especially for a beginner. I crashed this thing a lot. And I've gotten a few messages from people saying, hey, I'm afraid to get a tiny whoop because I don't want it to break. Should I invest in something more durable? And the sad truth is, these things are the most durable thing in the hobby. You are going to break things in this hobby, and that is the truth. And truth hurts sometimes, but honestly, it's about the experience. You're gonna put a few bucks into this hobby, and you just gotta throw yourself into there and kind of just ride and learn along the way, because that's how I did it. I went through several different frames, and this is my second Moblite 7, which is already dead, so I've modded it out, which I will get back to this in just a minute. But basically, moral of the story is, get a whoop, fly it, crash it, break it. You're gonna learn, you're gonna get a new one, but it's all part of the fun. So I'm gonna put this aside and we're gonna talk about a different whoop in a bit, but I'm gonna play some DVR to show you guys how I flew earlier on during my journey and how far I've come to this day, but also just so you guys can kind of see how the Moblite 7 performed. So here's a little bit of DVR. So after a few months of crashing and breaking the Moblite 7, I thought that I needed a new whoop. So I found a deal online on the Tinyhawk S, and I had to pick it up. So this is the Tinyhawk S, or this is the frame at least. I ripped the cuts out and put it into something else, but I will talk about that in just a minute. The Tinyhawk S is a pusher configuration drone, and it runs on 1S. It can run on 2S as well, but I don't recommend it. It's just way too powerful and it's kind of weird to control. So 1S is what I stuck to, and this really took my whoop level a step up. Basically, I could fly this thing indoors without worrying, and it was way more durable, and the fact that the props were covered and the way that it flew was so locked in, I did not have to worry about breaking things. Now the Tinyhawk S, out of the box, performs very sluggishly. So I looked into some ways to upgrade this thing, and I came across a few different ways. So what I did was I took the motors that I'm going to use this as a demonstration. This is a Tinyhawk S as well. This is just with some of the components in. So they have plug-in motors. I just unplugged them, cut them, and I soldered the motors on directly to the board. Now, do I recommend doing this? Honestly, probably not. You get a little bit more power, but the convenience of just plugging a motor in rather than soldering it on is way better than soldering the motors on, because every time I switch the frame out, I need to either destroy the frame or I need to desolder these wires, and it takes me about an hour to do because of how small they are and because I have to reach underneath of this plastic without burning it. In my opinion, don't do the motors, just keep them how they are, plug and play. The second upgrade I did was I took the stock camera, I removed it, and I used the Runcam Nano 3. This saved me about half a gram, and it gave me a way better picture quality than the standard camera that came with the Tinyhawk S. And then I took the regular PH 2.0 connector and I switched it out for a solid pin connector. And that brought this thing to a whole new level. It had way more power, it had way more flight time. And then I flashed it with Project Mockingbird, which completed it full circle. This thing was the best whoop that I flew up to date. This thing was the best whoop that I had flown up to that day, and I thought this thing was amazing. It still is, but wait till we get to the other ones. The Tinyhawk is durable and it flies super locked in. The pusher configuration allows you to keep the battery way closer to the motors, and the center of balance is much closer to the center of the drone. So this allows the drone to be super locked in, and I know my buddy Vaughn really likes the Tinyhawk because of how stable it is. So if you're looking for something durable that flies not too quickly but is super controllable indoors, I recommend the Tinyhawk S for sure. If you have any questions, just DM me. I can help you with the upgrades and how to flash JESC and how to flash Project Mockingbird, and basically how to get your whoop to be, in my opinion, as perfect as this one. I'm gonna throw some DVR up right now for you guys to see the Tinyhawk S and how locked it is and how it flies indoors and with my flight style, so you guys kind of get an idea of what you are getting. After the Tinyhawk S, I shipped the components out, and I recently just did this today actually. I got a Tinyhawk 2 frame, which is hydro dipped in this camo flavor. It looks pretty good. I don't know, you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. But basically, I took the Runcam Nano 2, which is a full-size camera, and I basically built my own Tinyhawk 2. I'll update you guys on how this thing flies in the future, but basically so far from what I'm seeing is it's flying pretty much on par with the Tinyhawk S with maybe like 20 seconds less flight time. Not really my concern. But over time, the Tinyhawk S just wasn't enough. My flight style is very quick, very pod racer style. I like to do a lot of flips, rolls, and a lot of acro indoors. So I wanted to find something with a really nice power to weight ratio that would let me fly the way I wanted to fly and get the performance that I wanted in this form factor, this small, that I wouldn't really have to worry about flying around people or indoors or breaking anything. So then I came across a video from Nick Burns, and his favorite all-time whoop is the Moblite 6. So I had to pick one up, and this is not a stock Moblite 6, and before I get to the mods, I'll kind of talk about my first experiences with it. So when I got the Moblite 6, the first time I plugged it in and flew it, my mind was blown. It did not feel like 1S at all. It runs on these small 350 milliamp batteries, and it was incredible what you could get in this small package. This is the smallest whoop that I have at 65 millimeters, and let me tell you, this might be one of my favorite whoops. I found that the biggest problem with the Moblite 6 was the durability and the flight time. So what I did was I switched out the frame for a Meteor 65 frame made by Beta FPV, and I have yet to break this frame. It's unbelievably durable, and you can crash the heck out of this thing and it just will not snap. The original Moblite 6 frame is so brittle, you can take the lightest crash and it'll probably crack, a standoff will break, or you'll break one of the ducts. So make that switch and it's a game changer. The second switch I made was the motors. So originally I had the 25,000 kV 0802 motors, and I ended up switching them out for these Zing 0802 22,000 kV motors. And the reason I did this was the original motors just had a little bit too much power for my taste. The flight times were just drained way too quickly, and the durability on the motors were crap. So ever since I upgraded to these motors, I've gotten 30-second more flight times, and I've yet to even scratch one of the little motors. And honestly, I really recommend this upgrade. It's quite pricey. The motors are, I believe, they might be 16 to 20 bucks each, which is crazy for an 0802 motor, but it is up to you guys. I really recommend this upgrade, and it comes in black, which is dope. I'm gonna play some DVR right now of the Moblite 6 to kind of show you guys the performance that I have from it and how unbelievable it is at acro indoor.
Ninja.
So as I was saying, the flight time on this was terrible. I was getting about 3 minutes max flight time, and that's just slow cruising. And when I was ripping at full speeds, I would get maybe 2 minutes if I was really being cautious about my punch outs. So the Moblite 6 had the best performance I've ever found in a whoop, but it just did not have the flight time like my Tinyhawk S. So I wanted to find a balance. How could I get this flight performance and still stay on 1S while getting the flight time of a Tinyhawk S? So I brainstormed a little bit and I pulled out the old frame from my Moblite 7. I took the motors that I've switched out from my Moblite 6, put it on here, and then I threw some 40mm props on here, and I just plugged it in to test fly. And on 1S I was able to put a 520 mAh battery, and I found that this thing performed way better than I could have ever expected it to. I'm gonna roll some DVR here and I'm kind of just gonna talk over it, but this thing blew my mind. I did not expect it to be able to fly so well. It was a little bit heavier than the Moblite 6, but I had a CADX EOS 2 on here, and camera quality was way better. I felt like I was able to punch a lot more gaps. I found that it was more durable, and this thing was so much fun to fly. It wasn't as locked as my Moblite 6, but it was just plenty of fun, and I felt like I had the best of both worlds. Then came across this guy. So originally, this thing was the Moblite 7, and some of you may have heard about the Moblite 7 already, but as you know, this thing is unbelievable. I will show a picture of what it looked like before, and you guys can kind of get an idea of what this thing looked like before I made these mods. And this is what it looks like now. So I have the same frame. I just put a canopy on top because I didn't like the open electronics, and I switched the green props out for black, and I mounted the camera inside the canopy. That is pretty much all I did, other than throw in my own custom tune. And let me tell you guys, this is what you've been waiting for. This is the most unbelievable whoop I've flown up to date, and I don't think it can get any better than this. So this whoop has 0802 19,000 kV motors on a 40mm biprop, and it is 3 grams lighter than the Moblite 6, or at least the Moblite 6 that I have. This thing weighs about 21 grams, where this one weighs about 18 grams. And the flight times that I'm getting on it are unbelievable. Up to 10 minutes of slow cruising or 8 minutes of full ripping. And I'm gonna roll some DVR over right now just to prove to you guys how unbelievable this thing flies. But it's crazy how far I've come from flying a Moblite 7 to a Tinyhawk S to now having a drone that runs on one S that flies for 10 minutes, which is longer than any quad that I have on my wall. And I can fly until I am bored.
Ninja. Ninja.
I picked up 650 mAh 1S lipos, and I get about an hour of flying when I'm just out in the field or if I'm sitting in my house. And I honestly think that this is where it performs best. All tiny whoops, in my opinion, fly best indoors. That's what they are intended for. If you guys want the best whoop that you can get, this is the one to get. The tiny whoop itself costs, I believe, $100 for the Moblite 7. The canopy itself is $3, and that is the only upgrade you need to do. It's fast, it has unbelievably long flight times, but it is not for beginners. This thing hovers at about 35 to 40% throttle. It is really quick, and I find that these frames do not hold up to extreme crashes in the long run. So to sum it all up, all tiny whoops are good in their own ways. Depending on your flight style, you might prefer one over the other. If you want long, cruisy, slow flight times that are super locked in, that you can feel like you can do anything with, Tinyhawk S is the one for you. If you just care about strictly performance and not flight time, and you just want to rip until your heart's desire, and you do not care about crashing this thing because you know that it's going to be durable, the Moblite 6 is the way to go. Although I do recommend these upgrades. And if you are a medium to more skilled pilot and you tend to not crash as hard as you used to, and you want to get the absolute longest flight times, absolute best performance, this is the whoop that you need to get. And that's it. I have nothing else left to say other than thanks for watching. For those of you guys who stayed till the end, I appreciate you guys so much. I am open to answer any questions that you guys need. Just drop it down below or message me. I'll have my email down below. You guys can check me out on Instagram, TikTok. It's all Aviation FPV. But besides that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.